Amitofo, hello to you all. We'll begin the class. We'll start with a bow and the recitation of the four great vows. Please bow. Four great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Welcome to you all. We're going to continue on. This is kind of something that is a go-to sutra for me to talk about, and it doesn't matter where I open it up at. There's no beginning and there's no end to it. It just simply is a wonderful sutra. It's the Sutra Mahaprajnaparamita pronounced by Manjusri Bodhisattva. And this is very important as it's linked to all of the Prajnaparamita Sutras, the Wisdom Sutras, and this represented a development in Buddha Dharma that was moving away from the idea that everything is real, which was something that was a contention of Abhidharma, Theravada, and that everything is real, and into everything is empty. Now, it's very difficult for us, especially for people that are just beginning, to try to understand the importance of what emptiness means. This is not something that you can just simply open up a book and find a definition for Buddhist emptiness. Emptiness in terms of looking at something and saying this bottle is empty. Yet that's different. But the emptiness of Buddhist emptiness is all inclusive rather than to the exclusion. But as we see things in this way, we begin to try to use an analogy such as the ocean, and where if only an ocean existed, then there and everything appears in the ocean. The waves appear in the ocean. Now, we have to kind of get away from, well, what about this horizon and everything else? This is just an analogy to say that everything is inclusive in there. And it's not an easy thing for us to do because there's a point where our conceptual examination of things just finishes. It cannot go any further. And we are referring all the time to contemplation, as we talked about last week. And the idea of contemplation is not cogitation, it's not thinking, it is contemplating as if it's a direct fusion of mind. But what it is really, it's very funny because it's just a restoration of mind there without a filter of the self that appears that it is in control. The self is only in control so much as the mind is confused and has obstructions. Then because of differentiations and discriminations, there is an idea that these appearances are real. But the Mahayana Buddhists went, no, Sariputra, they're not real, they're empty. All of these appearances are appearances within mind. So this is very, very important as we begin to study Buddha Dharma, to understand that it is the idea of returning everything to mind. And when we return it in this way, there's these little subtle corrections that I need to make when people are writing in the Mindwork Forum, which is a wonderful place to try this all out. And if you dare, to write something there as to what you believe your understanding is. And if you're corrected, you should rejoice, because when you're corrected, you're that much closer to understanding it. When you think that you have this notion, and this notion, you walk around thinking that this is what mind is, or this is the correct view or right view, but then you find out that you still have this filter of an ego. The hardest part for us to do, and the most subtlest part of Buddha Dharma, is distinguishing the phenomena from its intrinsic nature. Now, there's a whole explanation of that entitled the Dharmata Vibhaga, and that in fact is the English name for it, is distinguishing it and seeing it is that distinguishing is in the nature of wisdom. And when it is a complete resolution of that, then even the wisdom is absorbed, and there isn't anything there simply because it's all mine. We cannot conceive of that, no matter how much I tried to talk today and say, oh, mind is like this. I can only talk about some things that appear to be incredibly grandiose. Um, and it's difficult because we hesitate to talk about that, because people, they have no experience base. They're not going to be able to understand what you just said or have any faith in it until they begin to practice and develop faith in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, and faith in themselves, that through their practice they begin to break down these illusory barriers. It is this that generated the Mahayana Wisdom Sutras. And again, it doesn't matter where you pick up and you open up a Wisdom Sutra. Try it one day, open it up and read one, and you're just going to go, holy crap, this is really complicated. I don't understand it. Well, that's good. That means that at least you recognize you don't understand it, instead of going like, oh, I totally understand everything that's going on. No, it's something that leaves you with a quandary as to saying, this is a sutra, this is a sacred text, but I don't understand it. I can't even begin to argue about it because I don't understand it. And then as you begin to practice and you posit things with well-known advisors, they'll say, all right, keep this one isn't quite right. What about this and thing? And this is how you begin to develop. It is the process of doing this that makes you a practitioner. Just simply reading something and taking it on the first level is not enough. That's what they call a shravaka, or a sound hearer. You can get there, but it's going to take you a long time. It's like sometimes I don't know if you ever try to book a flight somewhere. I may go to San Francisco and booking a flight, and I had one that had like a stopover in Texas, and I'm going, this looks like it's going the wrong way, but it would eventually get me to the Bay Area, but it's not a direct route. That's like being a sound hearer. But if we really press hard, we can obtain this. I shouldn't say obtain. We can begin to realize this wisdom. And when I talk about realizing wisdom, and I have to correct myself, it is because there's not an attainment there. Because if you have an attainment, there's something very important that has to be there to have an attainment. Does anybody know? What is a prerequisite to an attainment? This is how simple Chan is. Shloka?
Right view?
Right view? No, it's actually the opposite. That gives you guys a big clue.
Rachel says self in the chat.
Yes, self, it's the other way. Because in order to have an attainment, there has to be somebody to attain it. But when we read the sutras, we see that Manjusri is very careful, very clear about there's no one that's attaining anything. And he's clear about how it is. We had talked earlier in the year about this very same sutra, and Sariputra was asking him, well, how do you attain the unobstructed? And he said, I am the unobstructed. Later, he asked him, how do you attain the inconceivable? And he said, I am the inconceivable. These are incredible power words because it shatters everything in front of it, including the idea of any attainment. How can there be any attainment if it's all mind? And so everything returns to the source. So the source is there. That's what you're doing when you're doing the huatou in a meditation. You're returning the question back to where it came from. And we do it all wrong. We do it, what is Wu? Expecting to hear something like some Oxford dictionary saying Wu is a word of in Western language of emptiness, which indicates there is nothing there. There's nothing, and blah 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 blah. It doesn't matter what it says. That's not a huatou. The huatou is experiential. There's no resolving a huatou. That's why I I'm reluctant to delve into the ideas of goans, because goans are these public statements that you want to solve or resolve. But the way they do it, in some places you pass the goan, and then you get another one to do it. But there's no attainment in Chan. It doesn't work that way. So you're just going in a carousel, going around and around and around. Chan, it takes away the ground from where the carousel's at. So how could the carousel be there? This is prajna paramita wisdom. This very deep wisdom that enables us to practice in this way. The right view has to be there, yes, but with right view, then we understand there is no attainment, because as we begin to do that, and as you see how I respond to people on the Mindwork forum, I'm very careful to pull out the chair. And if that doesn't work, I pull off the carpet, and then that doesn't work, I pull the floor out to give the practitioners nothing to support their positions, that they can have some kind of, oh, I get it, or I understand. And my dad used to always tell us that, we thought, oh, what could my father know, and he would be explaining something, and we'd go, I know, Dad, I know. And he would just say in Spanish, con el I know otra vez, with the I know again, and he says, you know nothing. And it was true, because he was speaking from wisdom, and we were speaking from ignorance. He had the experience of whatever he was explaining to us. And it's in this way that we practice. Well, that's a long introduction to where I'm going, but I wanted to give you a taste of some of this so that you can go back. And again, it doesn't matter where I'm at in the sutra. I don't necessarily believe you have to start a sutra from the very beginning to obtain something from it. If you want to study that sutra, let's say the Lotus Sutra, I have uh, Harry Miller who uses the sutra, and he does the Lotus Sutra, and he does a very good job of it. He knows it backwards and forwards. But any place you open the sutra up has precious, valuable jewels to it. So here, if you can post the first page, Santa. This one's not quite as marked up as some of them. Here we go. I'm going to start with the full first paragraph there. Wait, was that the first one? You're on the second page. My fault, because I didn't tell you the order of them. So while she's pulling it up, I'll start because it says, then the Bodhisattva, Mahasava, Manjusri. So got to go up. Okay, so it starts on the fifth line. Then the Bodhisattva, Mahasava, Manjusri, the youth. So that's a big title that's there, but it's there for a specific purpose. One, it's indicating that he is a bodhisattva. So here, there's a departure from simply becoming a lohan or an arhat. And this is a different classification that was not prevalent in the Theravadan teachings, which is a bodhisattva. And so a bodhisattva meaning an enlightened being. And then it says Mahasava. And so the term Sava is a being. Maha means the highest. So here we're referring to him not just simply as a bodhisattva, but the highest of bodhisattvas. This is a bodhisattva that has made the decision to remain in this appearance world, this world of illusion, for the purposes of delivering illusory sentient beings. So this is where he has this. And then it adds, so it's Manjusri, the youth. And so the youth is there, and it's important to understand why they say the youth, because he represents like the new wave and the new understanding and a fresh look at Buddha Dharma. And he said to Sariputra, now Sariputra represents the old way and the old way of Theravadan. And the Theravadins, their name in Sanskrit is the elders, or the study of the elders. So now you see here they're saying this is the youth. This has energy, vitality. It has action to it. It's practicing, like Samantha Bhadra Bodhisattva. It represents an infusion of practice, of energy, and of doing, and rather than just simply trying to escape to reach nirvana. And so Sariputra represents the old way here. And it says, indeed is just as you say, although I activate the mind of great majesty for all sentient beings, I never see the appearances of sentient beings. So you're going, what? What do you mean you don't see sentient beings? So if he said that he was seeing the sentient beings, there would be a creation of a duality there. And when we see it in that way, it corrupts the way that we look at things. And all of a sudden there's a difference of a subject and object. But here what he's saying is that mind is aware of these illusory sentient beings, but being mind, it does not see that they have a separate nature from mind. It comes from mind. And it is in this way. It's as if you went somewhere, and they went, oh, you didn't know it, but this is your cousin Juan, and you go, well, he's family, you know, so you understand he's part of the family, and you understand it in this way. We don't see the sentient beings, but it doesn't negate the fact that mind runs through it. The only difference is mind runs through all sentient beings, not as individual lives or beings, but as mind itself. This is difficult for us to understand. And that's why these sutras are there. And these sutras grew to the 8,000 line sutra, all the way to a 100,000 line sutra, but they're all saying the same thing in terms of this. And, if you want a reference point, you can go to uh, the Heart Sutra, just to kind of give you something to kind of keep your base there. But reading this, then all of a sudden the Heart Sutra comes to light. So he says, I never see the appearances of sentient beings, although I am adorned with the great majesty for all sentient beings. Their realm neither increases nor decreases. This is important for us to understand this, because we see that all the time. It neither increases or decreases. And we come from a world that of measurements, of time, of space, of counting things, you counting. And all of a sudden they're saying it doesn't increase or decrease. And then you go, wait, time out. What are you talking about? How could it not be? I had family members, they're already gone. So didn't it decrease when the family members go, or somebody is born? Doesn't that change the numbers? Or whatever's happening, how is it that it doesn't increase or decrease? And it's because mind itself is not governed by the laws of this illusory nature. The laws of this illusory nature are merely projections in mind that are part of mind, but transitory. But we look at it and we see that these projections do not have a number count. How can you count it? You can't even count it to one. It is what Manjusri is speaking about, is where the one returns to. To even have the number one will not work. One of probably the major advancements in all societies is the discovery of zero, because it isn't necessarily zero like nothing. It's all inclusive. It's in between that which has come and that which will come, all of these numbers, and that's whatever the numbers are. And it's different. It is this emptiness. Okay, so we continue on. Suppose the Buddha stays in the world for a kalpa, which is a long time, and some of this I'm kind of explaining for people who are new here, so that you're not totally lost. Little by little, you'll understand the language, so don't be overwhelmed. Or over a kalpa, although each world has only one Buddha, there are many Buddhas as the innumerable boundless sands of the Ganges. Suppose they all pronounce the Dharma day and night for a kalpa or over a kalpa, never resting their minds. Suppose each of them delivers as many sentient beings as innumerable uh, um, sands of the Ganges. So if you're imagining the Ganges River, which was what they were trying to do, is use a reference point that was common to the people indigenous to where this was happening, where they were writing, and saying, imagine all the little sand grains of sand in that Ganges, and those were all delivered, people that were delivered by these Buddhas that are saved as innumerable as those sands. And they say, suppose each of them delivers as many sentient beings as innumerable sands in the Ganges, enable them to enter nirvana. Yet the realm of sentient beings neither increases nor decreases. And you go, okay, well, they're doing this and they can do this all night long, and yet it doesn't increase or decrease because there's no measurement in mind in this way. In order to have a measurement, you have to say, well, it starts here and it goes over to here. But it doesn't work that way. There's not a measurement there. And when we have a measurement, it is conceptual, but mind is inconceivable. We cannot say, okay, I will start here and I'm going to go to infinity. Well, where is that infinity? Oh, excuse me, infinity that way. No, infinity that way. Where would you even have a reference point for that? And where would it cannot, by the definition of infinite, there's no end to it. Being no end to it, there is no beginning to it. So we're talking about a whole different type of um, a way of looking at this world. We're not looking at the world and we're not practicing Buddhism from within samsara. The reference point that we practice is mind. This is not something innovative. Gilbert's coming up with right view, and this is his. No, right view's always been there. It escapes me why people don't try to present it. It is difficult to work with, but it is simply something that can be explained. And when it's explained, the practitioners, they grow by leaps and bounds. I mean, just amazing how they are. And they don't have to be the most well-versed person in Buddha Dharma, knowing every recitation and every chapter of this sutra or whatever. It isn't in that way. It is in a way in which when we discuss these things, we discuss them in a way where we're clear of what we're practicing. We may not understand it yet because it requires realizations, but nevertheless, it's something that's very, very important for us to practice. Okay, so we go back to here. And then it was talking, suppose that each of them delivers sentient beings as innumerable, enabling them to enter nirvana, yet the realm never increases nor decreases. This applies to all Buddhas' lands in the 10 directions. All Buddhas pronounce the Dharma to teach and transform sentient beings, each delivering as many sentient beings as innumerable sands in the Ganges, enabling them to enter nirvana. Yet the realm of the sentient beings neither increases nor decreases. Just why not? Because the definite appearances of sentient beings can never be captured. Within the realm of samsara, within this illusory world, I see you, you see me. and this is our conceptual way of seeing things and a conceivable way of seeing things. But as I'm speaking, I don't see any of you. It is as if it is the Buddha mind is addressing the Buddha mind. In this Buddha mind, even though they talk of many countless Buddhas, even those countless Buddhas cannot be counted in any way. They are inconceivable in this way. And we see things in this way. And the reason that these sutras talk in this way is to break down your idea of this world as being real, breaking it down to say, well, you see it as a samsaric individual and subject to all these laws. The laws are there, but those laws are due to the function of pratika samappada, cause and conditions never fail. But that too is the Buddha. So everything returns back to the Buddha or the Buddha mind. And so as we're looking at it, it changes the way that we see things. And Manjusri is de-reifying your idea of what you think is real. De-reifying is breaking it down and saying, maybe you ought to take a look at it this way. Perhaps it's a little different than what you were thinking from before. And that's when the floor drops out. Okay, so we continue on. Hence, the realm of sentient beings neither increases nor decreases. Sariputra then asked Manjusri, given that the realm of sentient beings neither increases nor decreases, why do bodhisattvas pronounce the Dharma to sentient beings as they seek Anyatara Samyak Sambodhi? So he goes to the practical way and saying, if it doesn't increase or decrease, if there was some kind of a result of this, but there isn't a result because it neither increases or decreases, then why are they talking about Anyatara Samyak Sambodhi? So Anyatara Samyak Sambodhi is this unexcelled wisdom. Let's see, where were we at? And Anuttara, the term Anuttara means the highest. The Sanskrit word also means the direction north. So they're referring to it kind of to give the person spatially that it's the highest, it's north. And although the Buddha mind and the practice is not so much concerned about directions in that way, but what it's doing is it's reflecting and saying that this is a very high level wisdom, this unexceeded wisdom that's there. And so Manjusri replied, because the appearances of sentient beings are empty, there are neither bodhisattvas seeking Anyatara Samyak Sambodhi, nor sentient beings to whom they pronounce the Dharma. Why not? Because, as I say, in all dharmas, not a single dharma can be captured. So again, it's going back and saying that what we call the Dharma, whether it's with a big D, the study, or with a little d, the phenomena, none of that can be captured. Why? Because it's like sea foam. It has no independent nature to it. If you shake up the ocean, it may appear to have some bubbles for a moment, but all of that then ultimately will return back to the ocean because it's not separate from it. We cannot say this sea foam is real. If the sea foam was real, it would be what we call immutable. Mind is immutable, means it never changes, it never goes away. It doesn't increase or decrease. It doesn't have any kind of a change to it. It is just simply mind. So, what is being done here is a reconditioning of the way that one is reading this and looking at it and realizing that it's not me that's reading it, but it is the Buddha nature itself that is awakening to its original nature or original face. And this happens, but the self is not present for that. If the self is present, then perhaps it wasn't quite as great of a realization that you thought. But when it's something that is sincere and one can do it, then the obstructions in the mind depart, and the mind itself, not you, you can't do anything, but the mind itself clarifies, and it's as if it's a drop of mercury, this liquid metal, and it returns to the big pond of the liquid metal. It was never separate from it in the first place. And it always had the nature of the other pool of mercury. It had that same reflective nature. And so by its nature, it easily is absorbed. And this is the self-absorption. It is not that you enter a door and are fused with mind. It is mind absorbs, and in that way, not a single thing increases or decreases. Gilbert's still there. Gilbert, what it perceives to be as mind, is still there. The difference is that Gilbert knows that this body is transient. It will give up one day. It wasn't here, but for just the blink of an eye. And yet the mind that it's using has never been born. When a person asked a monk, and they go, how old are you? And he said, I am as old as the Buddha. And then they asked him, well, how old is the Buddha? And he said, as old as me. To me, this is both humorous, but so telling in terms of what is the absolute. There is no difference. It is this mind that is there. It is the mind that is being removed from this illusory discriminations and differentiations that cause it to perpetuate the idea of this dream world that we call Earth here. Okay. Let's see. So then Manjusri was saying the appearance of the realm of sentient beings is just like the realm of the Buddhas. If there is a measure for the realm, is there a measure for the realm of sentient beings? The measure for the realm of sentient beings is just like that for the realm of the Buddhas. The Buddha next asked, is there a place for the measure of the realm of sentient beings? So is there a place? Where do we measure it at? Let's say that we're out in the ocean in a boat, and we want to know where we're going in there. And so we decide, okay, I will take a stick and draw a line in the ocean as to where this is the starting point of where I'm going. and then we go there, and then we'll measure back. Well, that's foolish because in a few moments, that line will disappear. All the ripples will disappear. There's no way to measure mind in this way because it doesn't have a dwelling place or a locale. It dwells everywhere at the same time, and dwelling every place at the same time, it's different from our notion of measuring something. Um, the measure of the realm of sentient beings is inconceivable. The Buddha asked, does the appearance of the realm of sentient beings abide? So abide in something, meaning does it dwell somewhere? So the appearance of sentient beings, is there a place like, all right, this is a samsaric world. Where is this the human earth samsaric world? Well, you turn, left at the Ursa Major and head towards the Milky Way, and then about a third of the way into the Milky Way, you'll see that there's this little tiny planet that revolves around these, and that's the place. No, we cannot measure things in that way. When we try to measure things in this way, how can we even measure things except for in relation to other appearances? So those things, it's a false one because those appearances can come and go. Or if you want to measure what the distance is between Earth and the moon, it just depends on what time of year it is, how close the moon will be um, to us. So there's not this uniform measurement for anything there, even though we try to hold on to an idea of it simply because that maintains the construct of this illusory world. So if we're in the illusory world, we want to maintain these things so that if we didn't do that, then we would have no way of perpetuating this world because we have to measure it from here. Measure how much money we have, how much aid we can give people, how many bombs we're going to bomb somebody with. All of these things, they're all calculated, all counted, and that's what this world is made of. But Buddhists see it and say it's neither sacred nor profane. Why? Because it all belongs to mind. It is all an illusory appearance. This is not easy for us to approach or to try to get to because we're fighting all of the habitual tendencies that maintain that this world is real. And that was the major push on the Mahayana was don't try to do that. Don't try to make this world real. Don't try to make the Buddha real. Even the Buddha don't do that. So one of the early sutras, Mahayana Sutra, the Diamond Sutra. It talks about that the Buddha cannot be known by his 32 marks. The 32 marks are unique features like long earlobes or a wand symbol, curly not hair, pearly skin, different things like that they say that this is what the Buddha is, and that's how they conjured up the images of what the Buddha looks like. But the thing is that it isn't in that way. So we have to see that all of those are just fabrications. The thing that we don't understand about these fabrications is that it's made and woven from the threads of mind itself. There is nothing that appears that is not a product of mind. There is no independent nature of anything. There's nothing that we can say that this is. And it is there that where we begin to trade with the coin of the realm, and that coin of the realm, which is not easy for us to do. It's kind of a bit like buying bitcoins. It's inconceivable. We we have to bring it back to this inconceivable, non-dwelling, empty that's there. If it is real, then in order for something to be real, it has to be immutable. It cannot change. Nagarjuna um, clearly demonstrated that time and space are are transient. There's no thing that you can do because you try to define time or space. It's in relation to something else. But mind is non-dual. The mind can be here in this room simultaneously. It can be 2,000 parsecs into the space. And then when we begin to talk about this is something very important too, because when you look at it and you try to say, because a lot of times the the writers refer to space as a analogy for mind, because how far does space go out? It's infinite. So, and when we see things, is there anything that is not contained in space? But it isn't in the way that we see it in this way. It is in the inconceivable. And so we have to begin to retool the mind to be able to handle this kind of study, to think outside that box. That's why one of my senior students, Michael Snobel, who's a quantum person, I don't know whether physicist or quantum mechanics or whatever, um, this is a perfect fit for him. And he's starting to develop now a reputation. He will do more in the future because he's using right view. And in quantum mechanics, there are things that have to presuppose that it is not a given. And in here, what we do is we measure everything from the realm of the human realm, but it isn't in that way. It's inconceivable. And so as we begin to put down those things that we think that are the fixed and that given constants, they're not there. Let me see how much time I have. So yeah, and the next part is where you're saying the open sky does not abide, nor do sentient beings. Um, the Buddha asked Manjusri, if one practices prajnaparamita in this way, how does one abide in prajnaparamita? So how does one abide in this? This is very interesting because, of course, you have to be. He's saying if we're doing this in this way, how can we abide? How can we function? How where is it that we can gain some traction or some steady footing? Manjusri is relentless with this. So Manjusri replied, non-abiding in dharmas is abiding in prajnaparamita. The Buddha next asked, where are we at? Manjusri, why is non-abiding in dharmas called abiding in prajnaparamita? And okay, Manjusri replied, not abiding in dharmas is abiding in Prajnaparamita. So it's an interesting thing because he's saying instead of holding on to something like this, when we open it up, that is abiding. What is it abiding? It's returning everything to the inconceivable. Because when you are thinking, let me think about this, I want to see how I get this done, and you're looking at it, you're creating a prison, a coffin per se. You came out of the egg, but now you're putting yourself in a coffin because you're trying to create a construct in the illusory world, which is just simply a dream world. But in the non-abiding, the mind is infinite. It is that which is able to swallow all of the waters of the Ganges River because it doesn't abide in that way. It abides in non-abiding. And this will drive you crazy for a while until you get to the point where you you let it go. You just set it down and say, and the self just goes, I give up. I'm leaving, you know, and you don't have to push the self out by its own nature. It it is transient, and when we give it nothing for it to abide in, it will go on its own. Mind will be there. Mind has always been there, but the self is a projection in the mind. When we see that, we understand, oh, now we're doing some really good work. This is mind work. This is not, oh, some kind of a Boy Scout, Girl Scout, um, you know, thing where do your best, don't lie, don't do this, don't do that, brush your teeth, wash your hands, cover your mouth when you cough, that kind of instruction. It's much, much deeper than that. And so it isn't one that we are are doing in terms of perfecting the self. It is the perfection of wisdom that what we're looking at here. And as we begin to see it in this way, then it changes everything tremendously. I think I'm kind of went a little bit over the time I wanted to do it, and I don't think I got off the first page. Um, but in any case, I think that you got an idea of this. And again, you don't need to start from the beginning to be able to develop and give a lecture on this because it all is worth listening to. So I know that for some of you hearing it for the first time, it might be a little bit um, deep, but on the other hand, it's something that I think that you will find that it is quite useful as you begin to practice it. It is something that it just on its own way begins to scrub the mind from all of these appearances. Okay, so we'll stop there, and I'll take some questions.
Edil has a question in the chat. Gilbert. Gilbert just wanted to make sure about the concept. So by mind, are we referring to the ultimate consciousness? Edil, do you want to come off mute?
Yeah, that's very interesting. You're saying ultimate consciousness. What do you mean by the ultimate consciousness?
Well, I may be wrong with the with the explanations, but ultimate consciousness is like the oneness, I would say. Like it's like what you said actually made me think. That's why I'm asking. You said the mind is always there, but the perception of self is different. So I don't know I don't even know how to ask the question.
Just the way you did it. What you're asking, most of the people here have asked in the past, and that's just the process of doing this, because it's so new to us, and we don't really understand it. There is a saying that's very, very important, um, that says that sages return consciousness to mind. Fools turn mind into consciousness. Consciousness belongs to mind, not the other way around. There is no super consciousness. It is the mind that is the part that's there. Because if we say the consciousness, we could say, oh, going to an ice cream shop. Oh, I'll have a Rocky Road. No, I'll change my mind. I'll have a pistachio. But if it was a constant, you could never change your mind in your consciousness. But the consciousness is flowing. The mind itself, that which is used to process all of that, never changes. Only the appearances within it, which include the consciousness, is in this way. Sometimes they talk about this consciousness as a higher consciousness, but it is referring to mind and the unobstructed mind. Sometimes in the sutras, they talk about the undifferentiated or non-discriminatory mind, which brings the clarity to the mind. And so it's a little bit different, because if we try to do that, then the danger with that ideal is that we try to create a super sentient being, a polished sentient being, but it is not in that way. The source of all of it is mind, and it will take time for you to contemplate this and to get it. But your question is precisely what you should be asking, because you're going to have a lot of confusion with this. But just hang in there, and you see some of the people here, that some of them have been with me for a little over a year, some of them 2 years, some for long, and you can see their maturation of their practice. Hearing it for the first time, it can be overwhelming, but that's why I took the time to kind of slow it down a little bit. And even though I on purpose went to the deep to show you how deep and wonderful it is, I will not leave you behind, I promise. Okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, just keep asking your questions. That that guy up next to me, Sam, he's pestered me with questions for so long, and he's actually beginning to make some sense now.
Thank you. It's
Yeah.
guaranteed. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? No questions today? Oh, Shloka. Okay, good.
Hi, Gilbert. Thank you. I had a question about aspirations, because it stems from the project I'm working on, where it's about hope and raising the aspirations of women in poverty in the Philippines. We're talking to them about the goals that they have for themselves, whether that be sending their children to school or having a better house, an eye on roof, and planting seeds of positive self-belief that they can, in fact, themselves and others in their community. But I feel conflicted, because I hope we're not planting seeds of desire and self, which is a prerequisite for attaining them aspirations. And then I started to wonder, how do we reconcile having aspirations but not grasping, even for myself, the aspiration of becoming a better practitioner? And I just to try, the answer that came, that I thought of, was that it has to be right view, in that we have to be aware that this is all a dream. so that there's no grasping in the samsaric sense. But yet it's the compassion that we have for others that makes us aspire to be better versions of ourselves. Yeah.
I understand your question, and again, this is a question that's it's natural that a question like that will come up. So there's a book that's called The Good Book that talks about rendering onto Caesar what is Caesar's, and in your line of work, which is a wholesome work, and you want to help people and give them faith that they can improve their lot. It isn't that you're saying, oh, well, do this, and you're going to be able to afford a big screen TV and a fancy car and whatever. You're just saying you can improve your lot. Nothing wrong with that at all. You're rendering onto Caesar, rendering onto this world things that can change. And what you do is you use pratika samappada to help you. Causes and conditions never fail. And the Chinese have the saying that if you plant a melon seed, you get a melon fruit. And so it is in this way that we look at things and say that what you are presenting to the people is faith in themselves that they can do it, and faith in that causes and conditions never fail. If they try their hardest in accordance with causes and conditions, they have a better chance to to improve. And so, but you have to you have to make the effort to try to do that. And so when you do that and you're trying to improve people, you're creating a pure land on earth, because you're providing people who have been historically deprived of upward mobility and having a voice in things, now seeing that they can do it, and you're a prime proof that that can happen, that now you have a voice and you want to help the people. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. They don't have to be Buddhist. You just have to help them and do your best with it. But the people have to understand. They have to to put forth the effort. And as they do that, and as they see that, and then they will ask you, where do you get this wisdom? Then you can tell them. So it is us demonstrating Buddha Dharma moment to moment that encourages people to come to the Dharma. And but there's nothing wrong with you helping people trying to improve their lot. Absolutely nothing wrong at all. That is good, because that moves towards the idea of equality, and it helps prevent abuse and exploitation, and knocking down those kinds of societal restrictions, especially upon women, and in third world countries, that sometimes are very horrendous. So it's good. You're fine. You can go ahead and do that. It's not inconsistent with Buddha Dharma at all. It is a demonstration of it.
Okay.
So, yeah. Okay. Anybody else? You guys are going to let me get off easy today? And you all understood it then. Yes, Jake.
Cool. I'll ask a question. Oh, sorry. Okay, no echo. Maybe just to kind of test my own understanding, but we talked about how the realm of sentient beings neither increases nor decreases. And I guess like in that passage, something that struck me is like it's sort of easy for me to get a conception in my head that nirvana is some different place, and you're kind of like transporting people from this place to nirvana. And then it's like, I would kind of think to achieve that balance, somebody had to leave and somebody had to exit and somebody had to enter. And I guess it really just, that's not a good way to think about it, obviously. But I guess there's the thing that I'm wondering is like, is nirvana supposed to be here? Like, is that, I don't want to try to over conceptualize something that I shouldn't conceptualize, but when you talk about like a pure land on earth, creating a pure land on earth, is the idea that you deliver people here and then here's our nirvana, and that's sort of the end of it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, you guys didn't tell them about the Nirvana bus last week that was heading out. You next time we'll put you on the list to get on the Nirvana bus. Man, it might be a bozo bus, so be careful about which one you get on. But in any case, sorry, I'm making light of it. But the thing is, there's a story that Shifu told that was very important, and it had a great impact on me. And it was one where he was talking about a master that was traveling, and he stopped at this monastery, and when they saw who was there, he asked if he could stay the night, and they said, of course, you can come and stay the night. And so they invited him to the dinner, and then after the dinner they began to give him a tour of the temple and the monastery. And he came upon this one picture on the wall, and he was looking at it, and he said, who is this fellow right here? And they went, oh, that was our former master. He has gone on. And so the master, without missing a beat, just said, can you explain to me exactly where did he go? And it is this clarity and perfection of wisdom that enabled this master to correct them in terms of saying, the idea of nirvana. When they talk about nirvana, they also talk about obstructions and saying that they're not different. They are appearances. And we have the idea that we want to go to nirvana. Same thing as some people want to go to the Pure Land. Mahayana practice is one that was saying we should not have an aspiration to go to somewhere to practice, but develop the bodhisattva practice of delivering sentient beings here with our vow and converting this world into a pure land. This is what Master Sheng was talking about when he was saying that one of his major slogans was uplifting humanity and creating a pure land on earth. And we could say the same thing of creating a nirvana on earth by uplifting humanity, just like what Shloka is doing, and we could say it's a mundane way, but it is the practice of Buddha Dharma that she's doing. And we uplift the humanity in this way. So the idea of practicing to get to somewhere, the Wisdom Sutras were very clear about that these things are appearances. There's not a nirvana land, that you could go to like Pure Land. It isn't in this way. We can say, yeah, those exist just like this world exists, but this world is transient, and so are those. But what we do is say that the one that's practicing, the one that's listening, the one that calls himself Jake, is not other than the Buddha mind. Not separate Buddha, just the Buddha mind. Yet where they function, they may appear as a projection of a multitude of Buddhas in accordance with cause and conditions. That's the Nirmanakaya, the appearance bodies. But those appearance bodies ultimately belong to the Dharmakaya, the mind ground itself. And so when we see that and we understand the Sambhokaya, which is this reward body, and it changes things quite a bit. You could say like it equivalent to, and you kind of wonder where the Christians got this, but where Jesus is the appearance body, and the Dharmakaya, that is God, and the Holy Ghost is the reward body. Come on, somebody lifted that from somewhere. All I have to say is that the Buddhists had that 500 years before. So in any case, but it's in this way, but we don't see them as separate, you see. That's the trick about this. It's very, very subtle. And your question is a really good question. These are the questions you should have. These are the questions I had as I was doing. There's nothing wrong with any of the questions that people ask today. There's not stupid questions. Sometimes there may be stupid intentions, but the people here in their sincerity, these are questions that lead to a progression in the understanding of the practice. So hopefully that helped you. Okay. And then Changshen.
Gilbert.
Amitabha.
I'm just as a should I say very concrete question, because I recite the Mahapajaparamita Sutra, the 10 what thousand, but that the longest one,
The 100,000.
100,000, okay. And I recite that a lot, and then it's interesting, like hear you talk, but like want to understand it, but not quite understand it, but still very attracting. And but I find another thing interesting is that when a person is dying, like is dead, and then when we do the after a person just die, and then we will do the 8 hours Buddha, recite the Buddha's name for 8 hours, and after that 8 hours, then will be a Venerable come to give that person a Dharma talk, and usually the content is about those like Hastral, this kind of paramita related. I'm just curious that why I know it's the purpose for that person not to abide this, maybe still abiding, want to I'm just curious, like though we don't understand right now but it seems very important to still to talk to a real life and death situation, talk about this content. So what do you think? I would like to hear why we particularly say this in that moment. Talk about this paramita things in that moment.
When people are dying, they still maintain a sense of identity, a sense of ego, a sense of awareness. Sometimes their awareness is actually heightened because they no longer attach to the body, but also there may be a lot of confusion in them when they're that way. I've had many experiences like that in helping people on. I had one aunt that I had to talk for a whole afternoon for her to let go of her body because she was afraid. And when I went to find her, she was curled up in a fetal position, just floating in the dark. Um, and and I had to kind of say, listen, you can't be here. You should just move on. Go to the light. There's no reason to hold on to this body. Let the body go. And so you begin to talk to them, and they can listen to you. And so you use a sincerity to help the people on. And recently, one of my good friends, her father was dying in Taiwan, and I actually picked up the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and for some reason I started reading it. I just felt, oh, I need to read this, so I started reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead to him, and it was very funny because he was listening to me, and he recognized me, and he said, Gilbert, what language are you talking to me with? Because he didn't understand English. I didn't understand Mandarin. I said, the Buddha language. You can still understand it. And it helped him along. And it turned out, I didn't know this at the time, but it turned out that was the moment that he was dying. And so when we help people on, it's very beneficial to them. We cannot change their deep karmic problems, but we can mitigate them, and we can help them to mitigate the problems so that when they die with a faith, and it helps them along the way for a beneficial rebirth. So we can try to do that, and depending on how much we are transmitting wishes and blessings to them sincerely, we can have an impact. But we also try to do that before they leave. But you certainly can still recite for them, and the recitation that you were talking about, what it does is it conditions them to quiet their mind. And it kind of reminds me of Hui Ning when the Hui Ming was chasing after him, and he said, "I don't come for the bow or the robe. I come for the Dharma." And Hui Ning says, "First, sit for a while." And so he was telling him to sit for a while to meditate before then he talked to him about the Dharma. And in this recitation, and if you have a group that's doing this for a person, they can feel it, and they can rest in that. And then when the monastic comes to talk to them, that they're more likely to have a mind that is not confused at that moment. A lot of people, when they pass away, they don't know where to go. They're with the family, and all of a sudden the hearse comes to take them to the funeral home, and they don't know whether to stay with the family or to go with their body. And so we have to help them to try to alleviate their fears and their confusion, because those fears and confusions will end up having them be born in a lesser realm, such as for my aunt, who was a very frightened person all the time, even while she was alive. And so I was trying to get her to keep her from going into the ghost realm. And so this sounds very strange to a lot of people, but it is in this way. When we understand this is just a matter of course, And her question, Changshen Fasha's question, is a sincere question. That how even when people are dying, we have to assist them. not just simply to ease them out to their last breath, but even afterwards. And we do that. And then after that, for 49 days, I was doing recitation for my friend's father. That's just the way we do it, just to try to keep that going. And that's in addition to my recitation for other people. But I did a full recitation just for him, to try to help give a beneficial rebirth. This is what we do. And it is very powerful. And in fact, my friend, they did what you were talking about, the recitation, and exactly how you were saying it, and they could feel something in the room, a lightness, an ease that was there. And so we don't just think, oh, this is superstition. The reason I'm telling you this is because you may run into this in your life, and you have to understand what to do when a person is passing away and what to do after they pass away. But it is in this way. I strongly believe that, and I just from my own experiences with that. No, you become aware of the person, their mindset, even though they're dying, and they're kind of their body is gone now, but there's a great confusion a lot of times because they don't know what to expect. So hopefully that answered your question. Yeah, so definitely, if you have a chance, and the people who are practicing it, even though it's a long time to do recitation, the time goes very fast, and they feel as well that they're cleansed. So this is something, and Dharma Drum has people that go out on a regular basis to do those kinds of things, and it's quite an important aspect of the practice. Some people are very good at that, and they have the patience to do that, which is good. Okay. All right. Deal. You're coming back.
Yeah. What you said actually popped the question in my mind. So when a dying person, or after death, they don't know what to do because they're so attached to their self, and body is also a part of it. So I wonder, like, when a new human being is born, it's like pure, right? There's no attachment, there's no clinging there. And how come?
Go ahead.
How come when a person, when they're dying, how come the let go can't happen? Because when they're born, it's not there. Did I make it clear?
Yeah, but I would say that it isn't so much that you think that it's not there. Even the notion of the self from the life and being from before is not there. The tail that continues on is the karma, and that karma then, even as the child is being born, they're all different. Some children, they hardly ever cry. Others, they cry right away and they scream. All of this is causes and conditions from the previous lifetime, and so there's this carries on, and also determining where they're born, if what parents they're born to. This is also something that's important. And the big admonition of Master Ling Chi was that you had to be careful, or else you could end up in the belly of a donkey or a cow. And this is not an idle threat. It could be something that can happen to some people if they're not very good in terms of what they did in the past lifetime. So even though they come in and they appear to be pure they still can have some kind of a connection or exact, even at an early stage, exact revenge. You know, such as killing the mother in childbirth because the mother had done something in a past lifetime against this person. So it's very complicated. I don't really want to talk too much about it, or I'll start to scare you guys. But I mean, it is something that is very, very complicated in terms of that. But we we come into this world, and the karma, whether it's good karma or bad karma, is what follows, and and also determines where we're reborn. So we can be reborn in the human realm, or we can be reborn in an animal realm or ghost realm or whatever, and depending on the confusions at the time of death. Practitioners have a better chance because their minds are more stable. They've been meditating. Did you meditate? Because then that will help you when you die. You know, here's my Gilbert's way of scaring you into meditation. You know, that you want to be able to be ready when you die. That you can have a beneficial rebirth simply because you're not going to be shied away when you see the light of awareness, and you just go, that's too bright. I don't want to go to that light. And so you just keep going down the line until you find the light that feels comfortable to you. So no, when that happens, then that's how you go in. But it's very interesting because this Bardo period that happens, we depending on our predispositions from the past lifetime, this is the only thing that remains there. Mm-hmm. It will develop where one goes, and you know, you can be a perfectly pure little baby raccoon and be born, or a baby rat. You don't know. So that's why Master Ling Chi says, if you don't know, then you better practice, you know, and kind of increase the chances that you're going to have a beneficial rebirth. On the other hand, there are those that are able to determine exactly where they're going to return to. You know, we're talking about very, very powerful masters or very great practitioners that determine where they're going and set course vows to come back in this way. So that's the positive thing. So if you want to have a say so in where you're going to be reborn, then it's best you practice. In terms of it, we shouldn't have fear, you know, with that. And you don't want to say, oh, you know, I want to be born to a rich man. You know, you have to be careful what you ask for. You may end up as a bastard child of some famous politician or whatever. I'm not saying anything, but in any case, you know, you have to be very, very careful how you do things. It's for the benefit of sentient beings. But there is that clarity to those who have practiced well. I remember after a retreat in the Lansing group, Buddhist Association, and there was a young girl that came there, and she sat and I went, it's very interesting because you have an old lady, and I was describing her, you know, this white hair and this smile and this face and stuff, and she's your protector. And she said, oh, that's my grandmother. And I said, she's very how would you say, kind of not so much powerful, but very aware. And she said, yeah, when she died, she actually died in a meditative position. So she died sitting up. And so I said, to do that, you got to be a great practitioner, like super, super great, or else have a heart attack when you're sitting there. But the chances aren't that great like that. But so it's very interesting. All of these things, they follow you into the next lifetime. So it's interesting when we see things like that. This world isn't as it really appears. There's a lot more to it in all of that. No, but that's for another day. So, okay, any last question? Okay. All right, then we will see you next time. And I may continue on with this just simply because it's a good primer as to the Perfection Wisdom Sutras. There are such a wealth of practice that you literally can open up in any page and you will find something. I didn't even get off the one page I was on. So, okay, we will see you next week. Well, let's talk about that because that's Labor Day week, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so
most US people will be off and may not be around. So
yeah, let's. Is Esther here? We won't have one next week. I'm going to be actually in LA doing a retreat. So, and I don't want to have somebody as a guest lecturer and have 10 people show up. So we won't have one next week. So if you want to keep track of whether we're having one or not, then you check into the Mindwork forum and to do it. But we won't have one next week. Okay, give you guys a chance to absorb what I was talking about. Actually, the second page has some really good stuff too on it, or the next page that was coming. No, I didn't get to it. Okay, that's it then. So we will see you. Amitofo, take care.